Hey there, welcome to our English online lesson with me, your perfect tutor, your perfect English tutor, Mr. Gilbert Chimale. So, as I said, we'll be balancing these two parts of English. We've got composition and structure. So, today we want to look at the general format or layout of a composition. Then we'll also talk about one type of composition, which is a narrative composition. So, a composition is a piece of writing. Your English exam consists of two papers, paper 1 and paper 2. Paper 1, you are required to write two compositions. It has got two sections, section A and section B. So, from section A, there are 5 questions, sometimes 6, 7, but you only need to choose one question. Then section B is compulsory. So we'll first of all look at the questions that come in section A. How do you write a composition? This part is the part that challenges students. It causes people to get my 7. Yes. So here are the hints on how you should write a composition. The first important thing that you need to do is to read and understand the questions. Read and understand the question. You read as many times as you want, but again, you are required not to spend much of the time just reading the question, but you should read and understand the question. After understanding, what are you required to do? Then choose a question which appeals to your experience or interest you have vast knowledge on. A question which appeals to your experience. Choose something you are familiar with, because you are limited with time. So you must choose a question which you can derive information about. The information will just be flowing, since you are writing something which you know. If they say describe a place, you can write that composition. Maybe they say describe a place, maybe they say describe Zambia. You know you live in Zambia here. So you are familiar with this place, Zambia. You are able to articulate more information on that one because you are familiar with that topic. So you choose a question which appeals to experience or interest. You have vast knowledge. Vast knowledge. After choosing, stick to the number of words. Stick to the number of words. These guys who mark, or the examiners who mark the exams, they simply count the number of words required. If you exceed, they will simply cancel. They will cancel whatever will be in the excessive part. Then they will not mark everything from that part. Which means, if your points are falling under the part which has been cancelled, they will remain. They will not be counted. So, you need to stick to the number of words. Number of words you are required to write at grade 12 level is 250 to 350 words. Each composition should contain at least 250 to 350 words. Your composition should not be too short. Again, it should not be too long. It must be precise. Your composition should fall within this range, 250 to 350 words. Then, never write too much on one point. Since it's the point you are familiar with, you are just explaining the same point. The same point you are explaining it many times. You actually need to present your work neatly. The points must be flowing. They should be in order. After this point, you explain it nicely in each paragraph. You bring another point, you explain it in each paragraph. That's how it is. Then, use simple language. Use simple language which can be understood by everyone. Not when the examiners are marking, then they'll be required to get it, a dictionary, and then they start searching for words. No, they mark a lot of papers, so that's time wasting. So you use simple language which is understandable. Simple language when writing a composition. Punctuations, spellings, and neatness. Punctuations. Make sure your composition is well punctuated. Where you should put a comma, it should be there. Full stop, capital letters, exclamation marks, question marks, everything. The punctuation marks must be observed. The punctuation marks should be observed. The spellings. Make sure you correctly spell each word. Each word should be correctly spelled, so that the examiners or the markers will know what you are talking about. Are we together? Then neatness. Present your work neatly, such that even the marker will have that interest of wanting to read what you have written, since it has been presented in a nice way, attractive. You need to be convincing, when writing a composition. So these are some of the hints that you need to consider when writing a composition. Now, let us try to look at the general format or the layout of a composition. A composition. We are looking at a composition in general now. So, the first part of a composition is the introduction. The introduction. What's the aim, or what do you talk about in the introduction? Remember, the main aim of the introduction is to arouse the reader's interest. To arouse the reader's interest. To arouse is to make the reader's interest active. To attract someone. To attract someone's interest. You are trying to make the reader have that interest of wanting to read the whole composition. Not just from the introduction, someone will say, nothing is there. So, your introduction must be striking. It must be precise. Just the introduction, someone will tell you to say, this composition is good. Just from the introduction. So, the introduction part is very important. It's very important. So, what can you do, or what can you talk about in the introduction? You can define vital terms. We've got compositions which have titles. Compositions with titles. For example, the narrative composition, the discursive, the descriptive, the argumentative composition. Those have got titles. So, what you can do in the introduction, you can start by defining the vital terms which are in the title. You explain. So someone who actually have that interest of reading your composition because of the way you've explained the vital terms in the title. The second point, or what you can do, you can give striking examples. Just by starting the composition, you give an example. So that example will actually at first like confuse the marker, and hence he will try to be convinced, what is this person talking about? What is this example all about? Then he or she will try to read the composition, so that he knows much about that example you have stipulated in the introduction. Out together? Yes. Then you can make quotations. Practice is better than, oh, practice makes perfect, sorry. Practice makes perfect. Prevention is better than cure. Those quotations, then the person will say, prevention is better than cure. What is this person talking about? Prevention is better than cure. Then the marker will try to read your composition. Let me see how prevention is better than cure. What is this? You see, you have grabbed the interest. So in the introduction, we are simply working at grabbing or attracting the reader's interest. That's all in the introduction. So you must be creative when writing a composition. Even things which you don't know, you should generate knowledge. They can tell you to describe a voyage, a flight. Let me use this simple term, a flight. You have never been on a flight, but you should try to think what can happen in the plane there. What can happen? What can you do when you are there? How can you enjoy a flight? You talk about that. You become creative. You talk about things which you have not even experienced, but you are actually imagining. That's how a composition is. You convince the marker to say, I'm talking about this and this. So that what you're fighting for are the marks. Simple. So that's the introductory part. Make sure you arouse the reader's interest. Then the main body. This is the main part of your composition. It is the one that contains the main points. So the main points of what you're talking about. What are you talking about now? You explain the points nicely and in order. In order. The points should be in order. For example, you are reporting an accident. You are reporting an accident. Without telling us how the accident started, you have only maybe just told the marker the last part of the report. No, then the car hit him. The car. You are just talking something that is in an orderly way. It's not in order. You see? So you must follow order when writing a composition. That one I've been talking about is a report where you are required to give an account of an event or an action you witnessed. So you start, we were coming from this part. We were traveling through this road. What happened was this and this. The driver was saying, then there was an accident which happened. You explain in an orderly manner. That's how you write the main body. And again, the rules, spellings, punctuations, don't forget. Neatness, shouldn't forget. So, the last part of your composition is the conclusion. You conclude now. How do you conclude? When concluding, you restate the main ideas of the main body. The main ideas. For example, if you are writing about the causes, or let me talk about, you are writing about abortion. You are writing about abortion. Then you were opposing, in your main body, you were opposing to say, abortion should not, you were opposing to say abortion should be legalized. You were opposing. So, in your conclusion, you restate the main idea, just the main idea as to why abortion should not be legalized. You just restate the main ideas. And then you give your personal opinions. What you think should be done to prevent what you are talking about in the main body. You give personal ideas, what you think. That's about the conclusion part. So, after this, we'll now talk about a narrative composition. Okay, so having talked about the general format of a composition, let us now talk about one type of composition which is known as the narrative composition. The narrative composition. In most papers, most examination papers, this question is there, the narrative composition. So, what is a narrative composition? To narrate is to tell a story. To narrate is to tell a story. For example, in RE they say, narrate how Jesus was killed. Narrate the birth of Jesus Christ. You are telling a story of what happened for Jesus Christ to be born. That event. So that's a narrative composition. So this is a composition which describes actions or series of actions or presents an ordered account of events. You can tell a story under narrative composition. It's a story or a series of actions. A series of actions, for example, RE is a very good example of a narrative composition. Let's take it for instance. A series of actions. Let me talk about a series of actions. Jesus healed a leper. After healing a leper, what happened? Oh, Jesus healed a man with a withered hand. Jesus did what? So that series of those actions that Jesus did, you are describing them now. You are writing them in order, in their order. So when you present them that way, that is a narrative composition. You are narrating what happened. Actions, series of actions, or presents an ordered account of events. Okay, let us talk about the layout. The layout of a narrative composition. How do you write a narrative composition? First of all, you write the what? The title. The title. So, for example, as I was saying, this one for Jesus Christ, Jesus healed the leper. So, in the title, you should put Jesus heals a leper, so that the marker will know that, oh, this story is about Jesus healing a what? A leper. And that's what he or she is expecting to find in your composition. So, the layout or the first part of your narrative composition should have what? You should write the title. The title must be short and precise. The title must be short, well summarized, and precise. It should be on point. It should talk about what you're writing about in the composition, just straight to the point, without beating by the bush. No, at that time Jesus healed the leper in the synagogue. That title is very long, very long. So you simply you make it short and precise. Jesus heals a leper. The marker will have interest. Jesus heals a leper. How come? What happened? He will try to read. That's how it is. So that's about the title. It should have a title. Then after the title, you write your introduction. Introduction. Your introduction must be short and precise as well. In the introduction, you talk about what is in the title. What is in the title? The introduction should not be too long. Long introduction will make the marker or the reader lose interest, because he or she will be confused. What is this person talking about? So the introduction should be short and precise. You can begin with striking ideas. Should begin with striking ideas. Ideas that will grab the interest of the reader. One day, as I was coming from, you give that enthusiasm to the reader. You see, you must be enthusiastic. So that's about the introduction. As we say, the introduction, its main aim is to arouse the interest of the reader. So it should be short and precise. Strictly talking about your title here. Not in the title, Jesus heals a leper. In your introduction, with the wizard hand, no. Stick to what is being talked about in your composition. Good. Let's come to the main body. The main body now, you describe what you're writing about in order. In order. If you're describing a series of actions, make sure you start with what came first, what followed, and just like that. You should follow logical order. The points should be in logical order. Then, you can answer the W questions. The W questions. Who was involved in the main body? Or is Jesus? Jesus, what did he do? What happened? Where did it happen from? When? You can answer these questions within the main body. So, in the first part, you can say, oh, Jesus came across a man who was suffering from a deadly skin disease. He did this and this. You explain what happened for that event to occur. Nicely. Make sure you tell the whole story. Make sure you tell the whole story. Your conclusion. Finish with striking ideas that will maintain the main body. Make sure in your conclusion, you just restate. It's like you are summarizing the introduction and the main body. Now you compress them together and simply come up with about 5 or 3 lines. 3 lines, 4 lines, 5 lines. The conclusion should be short and precise. The conclusion should be short. So you should maintain the main body. For example, in the main body, you are talking about Jesus healing a leper. In your conclusion, that's how Jesus healed a man with a withered hand. What are you talking about? The marker or the reader will be confused. What is this person talking about? A leper in the main body, in the conclusion, a wizard. What is this? So you maintain your main body in your conclusion. Let us look at this example. Write a composition on the title, There is Time for Everything. Sometimes, for narrative composition, the title will be given. Even in the exam, the title will be given. So, you simply take this one as the title. There is time for everything. There is time for everything. Yes. So, there is time for everything. When you write your title, there is time for everything. You understand it's okay, there is time for everything. Don't just start saying in your composition, there is time for everything. Since there is time for everything, no. Think of a story now. Since a narrative composition is a storyteller, it's a storytelling composition. So you think of a story to tell the reader. So that story should also maintain the title, There is Time for Everything. You can talk about a friend, maybe the friend at school was doing or was involved in bad attitudes, bad behaviors. The friend was not studying and hence he or she failed the exam. That person did not use time well because that time was for learning. So there is time for everything. You can start, when we were at school, you tell a story. You tell a story of what happened for that person now to fail because he or she did not use time well. Then you can also talk about a person who married at a tender age. There is time for everything. That's not the time to marry. You talk about that. You can tell a story. You just come up with a story of what happened. It doesn't matter if it's real, fake. You just tell a story. Present it in order, neat. You will get the marks. That's how it is. So, this is about a narrative composition. The second video will talk about the descriptive composition and the argumentative composition. It has been your teacher, your tutor, your perfect tutor, your perfect English tutor, Mr. Gilbert. It has been a nice lesson. I hope you have enjoyed it. Thank you.